Hello everyone, this is Invader, and welcome to my review for In Rays of the Light on Xbox Series X. The game is developed by Sergey Noskov and published by Sometimes You. I paid just a bit over $9 Canadian for it. It's a re-release of the PC title The Light for Xbox Series consoles, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and the Nintendo Switch. I picked up this game mainly because I'm intrigued by Noskov's work. Last year, I played and reviewed 7th Sector and thoroughly enjoyed it. There's a certain nuance to his works, allowing you to go through a game, picking up a story at your own pace, and examining the environment rather than just giving it to you. And I thought to myself, why not take a chance in this cheap title? Does the light shine, or is it a glimmer of something that could have been much more? Let's find out. The story revolves around a lonely world. Nobody is around, it's just you. Buildings are dilapidated, empty husks of their former selves, with signs of the environment starting to reclaim the world. Civilization is absent, and you're left trying to piece together what happened here. As you make your way through creepy bunkers and shells of buildings, you'll find clues and notes that tell the tragedy. The story itself is interesting as you're slowly picking up the puzzles to what had happened, kinda like a detective at a crime scene. The problem is that a lot of it is related to exploration, and if you're not necessarily a player that enjoys going through every room, nook and cranny, then you're going to be disappointed. You need to be dedicated to searching for the clues and completing the puzzles to continue along the way. This game does not hold your hand, and it's up to you to piece together the story. The gameplay is pretty straightforward, and it's what some would call a walking simulator. You walk and investigate around the area, discovering clues, objects, and notepads that give a little bit more information as to what's going on plot-wise. There is a limited form of interaction. In moments that you need to progress, you'll need to find objects, look for codes, and complete puzzles. When first going into this title, remember that it's a very lonesome experience. There's no real enemies, no firefight sections, or even stealth sections for that matter. You go from point A to point B, with some puzzles and gathering items in between. Onto the visuals, and it's a letdown to say the least. This is a re-release of a game that came out a few years back, and you'd think the developer would take advantage of newer hardware. Unfortunately, it's a disappointment in this regard and doesn't hold a candle to other games in the same category. The color palette seems flat, the environment is very dark and gray, and while I am forgiving of it when it comes to certain sections like the underground bunker, everything else looks kinda boring. That being said, there are some nice use of lighting in some instances. I mean, I would hope with a game called In Rays of the Light that there would be, right? There is a moment when there's objects shooting through the sky and lights up the world, but that's only for a single moment. Don't expect a next-gen experience visually with this title. Also of note is that I did encounter a few graphical hiccups. While none were game-breaking bugs, visually I noticed some oddities, such as black blotches stretching through the sky. When your game is centered to look around the environment, it's a bit immersion-breaking to say the least. Moving on to the audio, and at times it actually makes good use of its soundtrack. It's got some nice subtle cues, as well as some more pronounced, brought-out tones during the darker, more chaotic sections. This game puts an emphasis on the environment, which includes the audio. So when looking around, it's a good idea to pay attention to some of the audio cues. It doesn't have a full orchestral score by any means, but it's alright. As far as game length goes, it took me about an hour and a half to complete. It's a very short game. Depending on your problem-solving skills, it could take you half an hour quicker or possibly a little while longer. Make no mistake though, you are getting a short experience. There is very little replay value, as there are two different endings that vary on how much time you spend being in the light. Otherwise, aside from some achievement hunting, there's not much of a reason to go back to play this after you complete it. With all that being said, let me run down the good and the bad aspects of the game and give you my final verdict. Starting off with the good, and there is some good use of sound and music. When the soundtrack kicks in at certain points, it becomes quite atmospheric. The story makes you curious. Since you're immediately thrown into a rundown building and nobody's around, you're forced to ask questions, find out what happened, and where the heck is everyone. There's also some nice Easter eggs thrown in. I'm not going to go into too many details, but there's some nods to 7th Sector, and there's some nice secrets discovered after your first playthrough. Now on to the bad aspects of the title. The visuals aren't great even on Xbox Series X. There doesn't seem to be any optimizations made, and generally the game looks outdated aside from some nice lighting, resembling an experience from 2011. There's glitches. During my playthrough, I encountered a number of graphical glitches. While none caused my game to crash, there were a number of graphical hiccups that need to be addressed, because the ones I encountered took me out of the experience. Game length-wise, my playthrough came in at about an hour and a half. Yep, granted it's a game for under $10, it's still a rather short experience for what you pay for. It's a very short experience, in fact. You can load up the game for the second ending and maybe grab a few missed achievements, but otherwise, there's no real driving force to want to go back and play this game. I just can't help but feel disappointed by this title. While I do like how the developer tackled and approached some themes, everything from gameplay, graphics, and overall enjoyment feel like a massive letdown. Even for $9 to $10, I wouldn't recommend this. Unless maybe you're an achievement hunter looking for quick Chivo points. It's a real shame considering that this is the same developer of 7th Sector. As far as walking simulators go, it's nothing special, and there's nothing truly compelling to make you want to play through this title. Overall, I give In Rays of the Light a score of 3 out of 10. So what do you guys think of In Rays of the Light? Are you considering picking it up, or will you look elsewhere? Also, what did you think of this review? Let me know down in the comments section. Otherwise, thank you all for taking the time to watch my content. Until next time everyone, Invader out.